Hi, it's Stu, and I'm doing my midweek, I'll call it, review. These four books are the books that I have finished or all but finished so far. My TBR challenge prompt was all the books on my shelf with the word girl or the color pink, and there were 8 books in total. And just so that it doesn't end up being a really long video, I decided to do one of just these 4. I'm also going to a neighborhood in a town that I have a reason to be at this in a few days, and where I haven't ever explored any of the little free libraries. So I wanted to have some books to give away. This I'm actually going to give back. I asked the person who gifted it to me what they would like, how they would like me to pass the book along, and they have a physical book collection that they hold dear, and they said, well, if you're going to pass it along, just pass it back. And I agreed. So something else happened this week, and I will talk about that in a second too. The first book I read, The Rabbit Hutch. The Rabbit Hutch, was a delightful find. I wasn't expecting to find this book, especially in the little free library in which I found it. It's a very recent haul. It's tragic in a lot of ways. It's that look at middle America and the desperation. There's certainly some insights into the opioid crisis, and the result of that being, children who don't have parents, and foster children. At some point I was like, okay, the rabbits, the rabbit symbols, the rabbits everywhere were almost too much. It was almost too much, but again, that kind of fits with rabbits, I guess. I read on somebody's review, they said this person took too many creative writing classes, and I would tend to agree, but also deserving of the award that it won, in my humble opinion. And I don't need to be coddled as a reader. Some things can be a little bit more difficult. Maybe some of the devices are a little muchy, but in the end of the day, it was a really good read. And of course, it's one of those that it's one of those that you still think about afterwards. I have quite a few things that I'm still thinking about this book. Not an easy one to necessarily recommend to people. I think it's for a very particular kind of reader, which also is its allure. And when I start talking about the next one, maybe I can make some more points. So yeah, The Rabbit Hutch. I'm glad I read it, and was an interesting book to start a series of a sort of TBR series in. The next book, The Last of the Moon Girls by Barbara Davis. I had high hopes for this book. Somewhere it said that this book was magic realism. The back suggested that it was going to be multi-generational kind of exploration of finding your magic. Perhaps. This is why I don't look into books that much, because I think I love it. Like, for instance, Startup, when I go in and it ends up being much more than I expected. This disappointed on like every level. First of all, it's not magic realism. If I had to be really curt about what this book is a highly predictable, tropey, mystery thriller with a Hallmark style cheesy romance. There were flaws in the writing style for me. There were plot flaws. There was things as preposterous as the box of condoms being the clue that suggests that a father might be involved in the deaths of his children. I didn't like this book. I have another book by this author, and I'm honestly thinking, you know what? A lot of people did like this book. This book is apparently very commercially viable, and sort of, I don't know, fast fashion for what someone might dare to call magic realism, because it's certainly for someone who doesn't know how to read or isn't into magical realism, like just straightforward thriller romance plot here. Yeah, I have another book by this author, and I might just honestly, I might just decide to unshelf it and put it into a little free library. Again, this book got good reviews. People like this book, so if people like this book, they'll probably like the other one, and I probably won't, based on my experience with this one. Kind of a bummer. I really wanted it to explore magic and femininity in a way that it didn't. I was somewhat saved by Whispers of the Dead Girls. Thank you, Marley Bush, for exploring some of the things that I kind of expected the Last of the Moon Girls to do, and for writing a pretty decent mystery thriller. There were some twists that were actually twisty. Not that I'm that into the twists. Some people really are, and that isn't really what draws me, but I thought that the writing style was technique-y enough to sort of make this intriguing, and the plot, as I said, had some twists. Also, sort of really kind of looking at some themes around who's protecting children, teenage children, and who's believing whom. And I thought that it was an interesting introspection even on that. Yeah, Whispers of Dead Girls. It's not out. This was the arc. It's going to be out May 27th, so in a couple of months. And I, would recommend this book to people especially people who like to read mysteries and thrillers. It's a solid mystery thriller. Oh, the last one in this stack is the most precious one, of course. And this is where I have those more things to tell you. So first, the book. The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Kelly Barnhill, just absolutely delightful, magical, compelling piece of work. I loved the world creating. I loved the characters. I loved, when especially young fantasy is done right, it is just really one of my personal favorites. Kelly Barnhill really nailed this story. It was the magic I was looking for. It was the relationships between mothers and grandmothers and society, and how witches are really, viewed. Everything that I had hoped for that the Last of the Moon Girls might have done, this book, of course, did. This book, it was the one. It kind of cracked me. I decided in this book, and because of my reading pace and because of other factors, that's it. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to the library, and I went to a library in the town where I worked. I don't know where my library card is, and I keep telling myself I will find it because it was so dear to me. It's in a special place for my city library. But the county library, I had never had an account for, so I went today. I got a library card. I downloaded Libby, and I got this in audiobook. I, for some reason, thought that this was something I really wanted to listen to. I wasn't wrong. And I also got all my next up-and-coming TBR in ebook, so that when it's getting right before bed, I decided to make the switch to read to dark screen, bigger font ebook, and then take the physical book around with me when I'm going to parks and coffee shops and reading on the bus. And then a couple had audiobook options, so I checked out a couple of the audiobooks of my up-and-coming book in case, I like that audio version, and, the sun's coming out more and more. I want to be out walking more, going on longer walks in parks, which I haven't been able to do because of the weather. So I thought, if it comes down to I'm really into a book and I'm like, whoa, I am not sure if I can put it down, or if I just want to listen to the book on the bus instead of read. Some days I do get car sick. Then I have some audiobook options. For all of the above, I'm going to just keep my physical, like the foundation of all of this still are these books that I'm getting out of little free libraries or thrift shops and then putting back. So the physical TBR still is the root of everything. And then I've just decided to use the county library to give me just some more options into the same books that I have on the physical TBR. So that's what I'm doing with it now. It's really exciting. I'm really excited about that. Yay. Those are my first 4 books, and I got 4 more to go. So I'll be making another video about those 4. And then about my next TBR challenge.